The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was sitting in my cramped apartment kitchen, meal prepping chicken and rice for the week ahead, when my mother's name flashed across my phone screen. I remember smiling before I answered. Back then, I still smiled when she called. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" There was a pause. Not the comfortable pause of someone gathering their thoughts, but the weighted silence of someone preparing to drop a bomb. "Jennifer, we need to talk about Christmas." My heart did that stupid hopeful leap it always did when she brought up family gatherings. It had been 3 years since my family had truly welcomed me at a holiday. 3 years since I'd married Lucas, the man they decided wasn't good enough for their precious daughter. Of course, Lucas and I were actually looking at flights too. "That's what I need to talk to you about." Her voice had that tight, controlled quality that I'd learned meant she'd already made up her mind about something. "Your father and I have discussed it, and we think it's best if you don't come home for Christmas this year." I set down my knife slowly, a piece of chicken breast half cut on the cutting board. "What?" "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Gregory and Amanda will be there with the kids, and after last year's incident, we just think it's better for everyone if you sit this one out." The incident? She meant the 20 minutes Lucas and I had been allowed inside their house before my older brother Gregory started making comments about Lucas's job, about how he was just a teacher, while Gregory was pulling in $200,000 a year as a pharmaceutical sales rep, about how I'd married down and thrown away my potential. "Mom, that wasn't our fault. Gregory was the one who—" "Your father is getting older, Jennifer. He doesn't need the stress. And frankly, neither do I." She sighed, and I could picture her in her pristine white kitchen, probably arranging flowers in a crystal vase while she cut me out of the family. "Maybe next year, if circumstances change." If circumstances change. Translation, if I left Lucas. "You're uninviting me from Christmas because of my husband. I'm uninviting you because you refuse to see reason. You had such a bright future. You were at Whitman and Associates, on track to make partner at one of the best architectural firms in Boston. Now look at you, living in some tiny apartment in Ohio, working at a firm nobody's ever heard of, married to a man who teaches high school history." My throat felt tight. "I love Lucas, Mom. And I'm happy. We're happy. Are you?" Her voice softened slightly, taking on that sympathetic tone that somehow felt worse than her anger. "Sweetheart, I just want what's best for you. You're 32 years old, and you're living like you're still in your 20s. When are you going to have children? How are you going to afford them on your salaries? Your brother is giving us grandchildren who will have every advantage, and I have to go." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I have work to finish. Jennifer." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to set the phone down on the counter and grip the edge to steady myself. The chicken sat there, half prepared, and suddenly I couldn't remember if I'd eaten lunch or if the hollow feeling in my stomach was just from my mother's words. Lucas found me like that 20 minutes later, still standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing. "Jen. Hey, what's wrong?" He dropped his backpack, stuffed with papers he'd brought home to grade, and immediately came to my side. His hands were warm on my shoulders. Solid. Real. "We're not invited to Christmas." I watched his face carefully. Lucas had the kind of face that showed every emotion. It was one of the things I loved about him, how open he was. Right now, I saw hurt flash across his features, followed quickly by anger, and then that resigned sadness that I'd seen too many times over the past 3 years. Because of me. Because my family are snobs who care more about status than anything else. I turned to face him fully. "I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear me trash talk them, but, Jen, you don't have to apologize for your family being—" He struggled for a diplomatic word and gave up. "For your family being the way they are." Lucas Bennett was 6 feet tall, with sandy brown hair that was always slightly too long because he forgot to get haircuts, and glasses he'd worn since he was 12 because he'd never bothered with contacts. He wore the same rotation of button-down shirts and khakis to school every day. He drove a 2008 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it. His idea of a nice dinner out was the local Italian place that gave teachers a 15% discount. And he was the best man I'd ever known. My mom said maybe next year if circumstances change. I laughed bitterly. "You know what she means." "Yeah." He pulled me into a hug, and I pressed my face against his chest, breathing in the familiar smell of his cologne mixed with chalk dust and old books. I know exactly what she means. We stood like that for a long moment in our tiny kitchen with its outdated appliances and the leak under the sink we kept meaning to fix. Through the thin walls, we could hear our neighbor's TV. Outside, someone's car alarm went off. This was our life. Small, modest, nothing like the one I'd been raised to expect. And until that phone call, I'd been perfectly happy with it. I should call her back, I said, finally pulling away. Try to talk to her. Explain. Jen, no. Lucas's voice was firm. Don't beg for a place at their table. You're worth more than that. They're my family. Then they should act like it. He cupped my face in his hands. Look, I know this sucks. I know you love them and you want them to accept us. But you can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend them, to say that they just needed more time, that they'd come around eventually. But I couldn't, because in 3 years, they hadn't come around. They'd only gotten worse. That night, I lay awake long after Lucas had fallen asleep beside me. I kept replaying my mother's words. Maybe next year, if circumstances change. I'd given up my job at Whitman and Associates, a job I'd worked toward for 6 years, because Lucas had gotten an incredible opportunity to teach at one of the best public high schools in Cincinnati, a school with an award-winning history department and a principal who actually cared about education. We talked about it for months. Long, difficult conversations about whose career should take priority, about what we both wanted from life. In the end, I'd realized something. I loved architecture, but I didn't love my life at Whitman and Associates. I didn't love the 80-hour weeks, the cutthroat competition for advancement, the projects I barely got to see through to completion because I was just a cog in a massive machine. Lucas, on the other hand, lit up when he talked about his students. He came home exhausted but energized. He made a difference every single day. So we'd moved. I'd found a position at Harrison and Lee, a small firm in Cincinnati that specialized in sustainable residential design. The salary was $68,000 instead of $115,000. The office was above a pizza shop instead of in a gleaming downtown tower. But I got to work on projects from start to finish. I got to meet the families who would live in the homes I designed. I got to go home at 6 o'clock and actually have dinner with my husband. My family saw it as failure. I'd seen it as choosing life over career. But lying there in the dark, with my mother's disappointed voice echoing in my head, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. I need to tell you about my family. Not the version they presented to the world, the successful, picture-perfect Hartwell clan with the beautiful home in Newton, Massachusetts, but the reality of who they actually were. My father, Richard Hartwell, was a cardiac surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. Top of his field, published in medical journals, respected and feared in equal measure. He'd grown up poor in South Boston, the son of a factory worker, and he clawed his way to success with single-minded determination. He expected the same drive from his children. My mother, Catherine, came from old money, not obscene wealth, but the kind of comfortable generational wealth that meant she'd never had to worry about anything. She'd married my father because he was brilliant and ambitious, and together they built a life that looked perfect from the outside. My brother Gregory was 36, 4 years older than me, and he'd follow the approved Hartwell path without deviation. Straight A's at Boston College, MBA from Harvard, married Amanda Prescott, daughter of a federal judge, at 28, bought a $750,000 house in Wellesley, had 2 kids, Olivia, age 6, and Ryan, age 4, and worked in pharmaceutical sales, where his combination of charm and ruthlessness made him very successful. Then there was me. I'd been the golden child once. Perfect grades, captain of the debate team, accepted to MIT's architecture program at 17. My parents had thrown a party when I got my acceptance letter. I remember my father toasting to the brilliant future of Jennifer Hartwell, architect. I met Lucas during my junior year at MIT. He was getting his master's in education at Boston University, and we'd both shown up at the same terrible open mic night at a coffee shop in Cambridge. He bombed spectacularly trying to do stand-up comedy. I'd laughed harder than I had in months. We'd started talking after the show. He bought me coffee and admitted he'd only done the open mic because he'd lost a bet with his roommate. I told him about a project I was working on, a sustainable housing development proposal, and he'd listened like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever heard. When I'd finally looked at my phone, 3 hours had passed. My family had been fine with Lucas at first. He was educated, articulate, came from a good family in Vermont. My mother had smiled approvingly when I'd brought him to Sunday dinner. My father had grilled him about his plans. Did he want to get a PhD? Maybe move into educational administration? Become a principal, a superintendent? Lucas had said honestly that he wanted to teach. Just teach. That he believed good teachers could change lives, and that was what he wanted to do with his career. I'd watched my father's face close off like a door slamming shut. We'd dated for 4 years before Lucas proposed. 4 years during which my family had periodically suggested I could do better, that I was settling, that I should focus on my career before getting serious with anyone. 4 years during which Lucas had endured polite smiles and backhanded compliments and being excluded from family events because he was just the boyfriend. When he proposed, with his grandmother's ring, on a hiking trail in the White Mountains, I'd said yes immediately. I'd called my parents that same day, so excited I could barely get the words out. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother had said, her enthusiasm as flat as a punctured tire. "Have you thought about a long engagement? You're only 28. There's no rush." There'd been no engagement party. When Gregory had gotten engaged to Amanda, my parents had hosted a party for 80 people at a yacht club. When I got engaged to Lucas, my mother had taken me to lunch at a quiet restaurant and spent an hour trying to talk me out of it. "You could have anyone, Jennifer. You're beautiful, brilliant. You have your whole career ahead of you. Why are you limiting yourself?" "I love him, Mom." Love isn't enough to build a life on. What happens when you're 45 and he's still making $52,000 a year teaching high school? What happens when your friends are sending their children to private schools and taking vacations to Europe and you're budgeting for groceries? I'd left that lunch with my throat tight and my eyes burning. But I'd married Lucas anyway. A small ceremony with 50 people, mostly our friends and Lucas's family, who'd welcomed me with open arms. My parents had come, but they'd left right after the dinner. Gregory had been my escort down the aisle only after my father had claimed he was too busy with a surgery to do it. The wedding photos showed a beautiful day, a happy couple, and if you looked closely, you could see my mother's tight smile and my father's absent expression and the empty seats where extended family members had declined to come because it was such short notice and we already had plans. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of holidays celebrated alone or with Lucas's family. 3 years of phone calls that grew shorter and less frequent. 3 years of my mother's hints about how it wasn't too late to reconsider my choices. 3 years of watching my nephew and niece grow up through Facebook photos because we were rarely invited to family gatherings. And now this, not invited to Christmas at all. 2 days after the phone call, I was sitting in my office at Harrison and Lee, trying to focus on a set of blueprints when my phone rang. Gregory's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but some stubborn part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, he was calling to tell me that Mom was being ridiculous, that of course I should come home for Christmas. "Hey, Greg. Jen. Look, I heard about the Christmas thing." He sounded uncomfortable, which was unusual for my brother. Gregory was typically supremely confident in everything he did. "I wanted to call and, I don't know, check in, I guess." "Check in. Right." I leaned back in my chair. "Did Mom tell you to call me?" "No. Maybe. Does it matter?" He sighed. "Look, I know you're upset." "Upset?" "Gregory, our mother uninvited me from Christmas because she doesn't approve of my husband. How should I feel?" "I get it. I do. But you have to understand where they're coming from. They had these plans for you, these expectations, and I didn't live up to them." My voice came out sharper than I'd intended. "Is that what you're saying? That's not— Look, Jen, you know how Dad is. You know what he expects. He grew up with nothing, and he built this whole life for us, and he just wants his kids to be successful. I am successful. I have a career I love, a husband who treats me like an equal partner, a life that makes me happy. Why isn't that enough?" There was a long pause. Through the phone, I could hear background noise, probably the Bluetooth in his Mercedes. Gregory was always in his car, always rushing to the next client meeting, the next deal. Because it's not the kind of success they value, he said finally. Look, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's how they are. And honestly, Jen, you knew that when you married Lucas. You knew they'd never fully accept him. So I should have chosen them over him? Is that what you would have done? That's not a fair question. Why not? If Mom and Dad had decided Amanda wasn't good enough, would you have married her anyway? Another pause. Amanda comes from the right background. She fits into our world. Lucas doesn't, and you have to admit that's caused problems. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Problems. Right. Like last Christmas when you spent the entire evening making comments about Lucas's salary and his car and his job. Those kinds of problems. Oh, come on. That was just banter. He's so sensitive. He's a human being who deserves respect, Gregory. Something you seem to have forgotten how to give. Jesus. Jen, I called to be supportive. No, you called to make yourself feel better. You called so you could tell yourself you tried. So when Mom asks, you can say you reached out to me and I was unreasonable. I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Well, message delivered. Thanks for checking in. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking again. I seem to be doing that a lot lately. That evening, I told Lucas about the call. We were cooking dinner together in our tiny kitchen, me chopping vegetables, him stirring pasta sauce, and I kept my voice light as I recounted Gregory's words. He actually said I knew what I was getting into when I married you. Like marrying you was some kind of calculated risk I should have avoided. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, just stirring the sauce. Finally, he turned off the burner and turned to face me. Maybe he's right. I stopped mid-chop. What? Maybe you should have known what you were getting into. Maybe I should have been more upfront about what choosing me would cost you. He ran a hand through his hair. I knew your family was like this. I knew they'd never really accept me. And I married you anyway because I loved you and I wanted to believe that love would be enough. But now you're cut off from your family and you're unhappy and... Stop. I set down the knife and moved to stand in front of him. Lucas Bennett, don't you dare. Don't you dare make this about you not being good enough. This is about my family having completely screwed up priorities. This is about them valuing money and status over everything else, including their own daughter's happiness. But you're not happy. I'm angry. There's a difference. I took his face in my hands. I'm angry that they can't see what I see when I look at you. I'm angry that they care more about what neighborhood we live in than whether we love each other. I'm angry that my mother would rather have me miserable with the right kind of husband than happy with you. But I don't regret marrying you. Not for a single second. He pulled me into a tight hug, and we stood there in our small kitchen with the pasta water boiling over and the sauce starting to burn, just holding each other. But later that night, lying awake again, I wondered if I was being honest. Because yes, I loved Lucas. Yes, I'd chosen him willingly. But I'd also believed, naively maybe, that my family would eventually come around. That they'd see what I saw in him. That love would, in fact, be enough. Now I was facing the reality that they might never accept us. That choosing Lucas might mean losing my family forever. And I didn't know if I was strong enough for that. November crawled by. The weather turned cold, and everywhere I looked, people were making plans for the holidays. My co-workers at Harrison and Lee talked about flights home, about Christmas shopping, about family recipes and traditions. I smiled and nodded and said Lucas and I were planning a quiet Christmas at home, just the two of us. That sounds romantic, my colleague Diane said. She was 53, had been married for 30 years, and treated me like a favorite niece. My first Christmas with Tom, we couldn't afford to go home either. We made it our own thing. Started traditions. I didn't correct her assumption that it was about money. It was easier than explaining the truth. Lucas's parents called in mid-November. His mom, Beth, had the kind of warm, genuine voice that made you feel instantly comfortable. We're just checking in, seeing if you two have any plans for Christmas. You're always welcome here, of course. The whole family's coming. Lucas's sister, his brother, all the kids. Lucas held the phone between us, so we could both hear. Thanks, Mom. That's really generous. We'll think about it. You know what? Don't think. Just come. It's a 12-hour drive, but you could make it in 2 days if you want. Or we'd be happy to help with flights if that's the issue. We just want you here. After he hung up, Lucas looked at me. We could go. My family would love to have you. I know. And I did know. Lucas's family had embraced me from the first time we'd met. His mother had hugged me like I was already part of the family. His father had shown me his woodworking shop and let me design a bookshelf he then built. His sister had asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. But going to Lucas's family for Christmas felt like admitting defeat, like accepting that this was how things were going to be forever, me cut off from the Hartwells, grafted onto the Bennetts, always aware that I didn't quite belong anywhere. Let's wait and see, I said. Maybe my mom will change her mind. Lucas didn't say what we both knew, that my mother wouldn't change her mind. The Hartwells didn't back down. They doubled down. The call I'd been half expecting came on November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving. We'd spent Thanksgiving with friends, a potluck with other young couples in similar situations, cobbled together families of choice rather than blood. It had been nice, actually, warm and genuine and full of laughter. But when Amanda's name flashed on my phone the next morning, my stomach dropped. Amanda and I had never been particularly close. She was polished and perfect, the kind of woman who always looked put together even in yoga pants, who threw Pinterest-perfect birthday parties for her kids and posted carefully curated family photos on Instagram. We didn't have much in common, so her calling me was unusual. Jennifer, hi. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. No, it's fine. What's up? I wanted to touch base with you about Christmas. I know your mom uninvited you, and I wanted you to know that I think that's completely wrong. She sounded sincere, which surprised me. I told Gregory we should talk to your parents, try to convince them to change their minds. That's actually really kind of you, Amanda. Thank you. Of course. Your family. And honestly, the kids have been asking about Aunt Jennifer. Olivia especially, she adores you. Something warm spread through my chest. I'd always tried to be a good aunt, even from a distance. I sent birthday presents, called to talk to them, remembered little details about their lives. I miss them too. The thing is, Amanda's voice shifted slightly. I talked to your mom, and she's pretty firm on this. I'm sorry. I tried. But she said that until you're willing to prioritize your family obligations, she doesn't think it's appropriate for you to be at family gatherings. The warmth evaporated. Prioritize my family obligations, meaning leave my husband. She didn't say that exactly, but reading between the lines, yes. Amanda sighed. Look, I know this isn't fair, but I also think, Jennifer, have you considered that maybe some time apart might be good? Maybe if you skip this Christmas, it'll show your parents how much they miss you, and they'll be more open to reconciliation next year. So I should reward their behavior by accepting my exile quietly. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to play the long game with family. After I hung up, I felt hollowed out. Even Amanda, who just said she thought my mother was wrong, was suggesting I should just accept this. That I should be patient, be understanding, wait for my family to decide I'd been punished enough. Lucas found me sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. What happened? I told him. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Jen, I think we need to make a real decision here. Not about Christmas specifically, but about your family. About what kind of relationship you want to have with them, if any. What do you mean? I mean, he sat down next to me. You keep hoping they'll change. You keep waiting for them to accept us, accept our life. But they're not going to. Not as long as we're living the way we are, making the choices we're making. So you need to decide. Are you willing to fundamentally change your life to meet their expectations? Or are you willing to accept that this might be permanent? That's not fair. Those can't be my only options. But they are, aren't they? Your mom has made it clear. Come back to Boston, get a job at a prestigious firm, live the life they planned for you, and maybe they'll accept us. Or keep living your life on your own terms, and accept that they might never come around. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say there was a third option, some middle ground where I could have both my family and my life with Lucas. But I couldn't think of what that option would be. I can't just cut them out of my life, I said finally. They're my parents. Gregory is my brother. Olivia and Ryan are my niece and nephew. I'm not asking you to cut them out. I'm asking you to accept reality and stop letting their rejection destroy you. He took my hand. Every holiday, every phone call, every family event you're excluded from, it hurts you. I watch it hurt you. And I'm tired of watching the woman I love be treated like she's not good enough when the truth is they're not good enough for you. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time your mother asked how you were doing without it being a prelude to criticism? When's the last time your father called just to talk? When's the last time Gregory treated you like a sister instead of a cautionary tale? I couldn't answer. Because he was right. I love you, Lucas said quietly. And I will support whatever decision you make. If you want to keep trying with them, I'll be right there beside you. If you want to step back and build a life that doesn't revolve around earning their approval, I'll support that too. But you need to make a conscious choice instead of just drifting in this limbo of rejection and hope. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I got out my old photo albums, the physical ones, from before everything was digital, and looked through pictures of my family. There was me at 7, gap-toothed and grinning, with my father's hands on my shoulders. Me at 15, in my debate team uniform, holding a trophy. Me at my college graduation, my mother straightening my cap. Gregory, and me as kids, building sandcastles on Cape Cod. We'd been happy once, hadn't we? Or had I just been happy because I was meeting their expectations? Had their love always been conditional, and I just never noticed because I'd never stepped out of line before? I closed the albums and made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for an invitation to Christmas. I wasn't going to call my mother and promise to reconsider my choices. I wasn't going to shrink myself to fit into their vision of what my life should be. But I also wasn't ready to cut them off completely. Some stubborn, hopeful part of me still believed that someday, somehow, they'd see what they were missing. So I did something that felt both petty and empowering. I decided to have the best Christmas of my life. And I decided to make damn sure they saw it. You want to do what? Lucas looked at me like I'd suggested we fly to Mars for the holidays. I want to have an amazing Christmas. The best Christmas we've ever had. And I want to document it, share it, make sure my family sees exactly what they're missing out on. We were sitting at our tiny kitchen table on a Sunday morning, coffee mugs between us. Outside, the first snow of the season was falling, turning Cincinnati into something magical. Jen, that seems like, I don't know, like we'd be doing it for the wrong reasons. Maybe. I wrapped my hands around my mug. Or maybe I'm just tired of feeling like I'm missing out because I'm not with them. Maybe I want to prove to myself and to them that our life is just as valuable as theirs, even if it looks different. Lucas was quiet for a moment, considering. Okay, but if we're going to do this, we do it right. Not just for show, but because we actually want to create something meaningful. Deal. That's how it started. What began as a slightly vindictive impulse to show my family what they were missing became something more, a genuine effort to build our own traditions, our own version of the holidays. First, we tackled our apartment. Our tiny, somewhat shabby apartment with its builder-grade everything and the water stain on the living room ceiling we kept meaning to call the landlord about. If we're going to take photos worth sharing, this place needs to look less like a college dorm, I said, surveying our living room critically. Lucas laughed. Hey, I like our college dorm aesthetic. You like it because you don't have to think about it. Come on, this will be fun. That weekend, we hit every thrift store and discount home goods store in Cincinnati. We had a budget of $300. Not much, but enough to make a difference if we were creative. I found a vintage Persian-style rug for $45 at Goodwill. It had a small stain in one corner, but I positioned our couch to cover it. Lucas discovered a set of framed botanical prints at an estate sale, $1.30 for 6 of them. We rearranged our bookshelves, hiding the textbooks and paperbacks behind our nicer hardcovers, and added some plants from Home Depot, hardy pothos that could survive our benign neglect. By Sunday evening, our apartment looked different. Still small, still shabby around the edges, but intentional. Cozy. Like a home instead of just a place where we slept and stored our stuff. Okay, Lucas said, standing back to admire our work. I'm impressed. This actually looks like adults live here. Adults on a budget, I corrected. But yes, the next item on our list was more challenging, what to actually do for Christmas. We could go to my parents' place, Lucas suggested. They'd love to have us, and we get the full family Christmas experience. I shook my head. I love your family, but that feels like we're just substituting their Christmas for mine. I want to do something that's ours. Okay, So what does that look like? We spent an entire evening brainstorming, drinking wine, and throwing out increasingly ridiculous ideas. Rent a cabin in the mountains. Learn to ski. Volunteer at a soup kitchen. Have a movie marathon. Cook an elaborate meal. Host a party. Finally, we landed on something that felt right. We'd spend Christmas Eve volunteering, and then we'd spend Christmas Day creating our own traditions, cooking together, exchanging gifts, doing things we actually enjoyed instead of things we were supposed to enjoy. And we take lots of photos, I added. Good ones. Not just snapshots, but photos that show we're actually happy. Lucas gave me a look. This is still at least partly about making your family jealous, isn't it? Maybe, I admitted. Is that terrible? No. It's human. He kissed my forehead. Okay. Let's plan the best Christmas ever and make your family regret being such snobs. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was putting more thought and effort into this Christmas than I had into any holiday in years. Usually, going home to my parents meant showing up, being judged, and enduring my mother's passive-aggressive comments about my life choices. There was no joy in it, no anticipation. Now, planning our own Christmas, I felt excited. Like a kid counting down to the holidays. We found a local organization that served Christmas Eve dinner to families in need and signed up to volunteer. I researched recipes for dishes I'd always wanted to try, but never had time for. Lucas made a playlist of music we actually liked instead of the classical pieces my mother insisted were proper for the holidays. We ordered a small tree, 3 feet tall, perfect for our apartment, and decorated it with a mix of ornaments, some from Lucas's childhood, some we bought together, and one special one I commissioned from an artist on Etsy. The ornament was a tiny ceramic house, custom-made to look like our apartment building. It cost $65, more than we usually spend on decorations, but when it arrived, carefully wrapped and perfect, I knew it was worth it. This is us, I said to Lucas, showing him the ornament. Our first real home together. The place where we're building our life. He turned it over in his hands, examining the detail. I love it. We hung it in the center of our little tree. As December progressed, I found myself genuinely enjoying the holiday season for the first time in years. Usually, this time was stressful, coordinating travel, buying gifts for my family, who had everything and wanted nothing, bracing myself for criticism. Now, freed from those obligations, I could actually enjoy the magic of the season. Lucas and I went to a Christmas market downtown, drinking hot cider and looking at handmade crafts. We drove around neighborhoods looking at light displays, making up stories about the families who lived in each house. We baked cookies at midnight because we both had a craving, and why not? We were adults. We could bake cookies whenever we wanted. I documented it all. Not obsessively, but consistently. Photos of our tree, our decorated apartment, us at the Christmas market. I posted them on Instagram and Facebook, casual captions about making our own traditions and being grateful for what we had. I told myself I wasn't checking to see if my family saw them. But I was lying. 3 weeks before Christmas, my mother called. I stared at her name on my screen for 3 rings before answering. Hi, Mom. Jennifer, hello. How are you? Her voice was carefully neutral. I'm good. Really good, actually. How are you? Fine, fine. Busy with holiday preparations. You know how it is. She paused. I saw your photos online. Your apartment looks nice. Nice. Not beautiful. Not lovely. Not even you've done a good job. Just nice. Thanks. We've been having fun fixing it up. Another pause. I could hear her gathering herself for whatever she'd actually called to say. Your father and I have been talking, and we wanted to make sure you understood that our decision about Christmas isn't personal. We're just thinking about what's best for the family as a whole. Something hot flared in my chest. Not personal. Mom, you uninvited me from a family holiday because you don't approve of my husband. How is that not personal? Please don't be dramatic. We simply think that given the tension from last year, it would be more comfortable for everyone if I wasn't there. Yes, I understand perfectly. My voice came out sharper than I'd intended. But you know what? I'm okay with it. Lucas and I are having our own Christmas, and it's going to be wonderful. Jennifer, is there anything else you needed, Mom? I'm actually in the middle of something. I wasn't. I was sitting on my couch in my pajamas at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. But I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing she'd interrupted nothing. I want you to know that this doesn't have to be permanent. If you would just consider. Consider what? Leaving my husband? Getting a better job? Moving back to Boston and living the life you planned for me? I laughed, but it came out bitter. I'm not considering any of those things, Mom. I love my life. I'm sorry you can't see that. You're 32 years old, living in a rental apartment in Ohio. Your brother is. I know exactly what Gregory is doing, Mom. I know he has the big house and the successful career and the perfect family. Good for him. But that's not what I want. What you want? Her voice took on an edge. Jennifer, wanting something doesn't make it wise. When you're 45 and struggling financially, when your friends are living completely different lives, you'll regret these choices. Maybe. Or maybe I'll look back and be grateful I had the courage to build a life I actually enjoyed instead of one that looked good to other people. I stood up, needing to move. Look, I need to go. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. Jennifer, wait. I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time it felt different. Not like fear or hurt, but like adrenaline. Like I'd finally stood up for myself, instead of just absorbing her disappointment. Lucas came out of the bedroom, where he'd been grading papers. Was that your mom? Yeah. How'd it go? I told her I love my life. I looked at him, and I meant it. He crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. I'm proud of you. She's not going to change her mind. I know. This might be how it is forever. Me on the outside, them doing their perfect family thing without us. I know, he said again. Can you live with that? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Could I live with being estranged from my family? With missing Christmases and birthdays and milestone moments? With Olivia and Ryan growing up barely knowing me? It hurt. God, it hurt. But the alternative was worse. The alternative was shrinking myself, leaving Lucas, chasing a version of success that meant nothing to me, all to earn the approval of people who should have loved me unconditionally. Yeah, I said finally. I can live with it. That evening, I took a photo. Just a simple one. Lucas and me on our couch, the little Christmas tree glowing in the background, both of us smiling. Real smiles, not the forced ones from family photos. I posted it with a caption, building our own traditions with my favorite person. Grateful for a life I love and a partner who sees me for who I am. #Christmas countdown. Within an hour, it had 50 likes. Friends from college, Lucas's family, coworkers, people from my life now rather than my life before. And one comment from a number I didn't recognize. Some of us value substance over status. Looks like you figured that out. Good for you. I showed it to Lucas. Any idea who this is? He squinted at the profile. That's my cousin Rachel. She's a social worker in Seattle. You met her at our wedding, remember? I did, vaguely. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a warm laugh. She posted something else. Lucas said, scrolling. Says she was the black sheep of her family too, until she stopped trying to please people who would never be pleased. Now she's happier than anyone she knows. I read the comment again. Some of us value substance over status. Maybe that's what this came down to. My family valued the appearance of success, the right job, the right neighborhood, the right spouse who said the right things and fit into their world seamlessly. They valued status. Lucas and I valued something different. Substance. A life built on genuine connection, meaningful work, real happiness rather than performance of happiness. Neither was inherently wrong. They were just incompatible. And I'd made my choice. December 24th dawned cold and clear. I woke up at 6:30, earlier than necessary, too excited to sleep. Lucas was still snoring softly beside me, one arm thrown across my pillow. I slipped out of bed quietly and padded to the kitchen to make coffee. Our apartment was dim in the early morning light, but the Christmas tree lights were on a timer, and they cast a warm glow across the living room. Everything looked perfect, the result of weeks of planning and decorating. Today was the day. Our first real Christmas on our own terms. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from my mother. Merry Christmas Eve. Thinking of you. I stared at it for a long moment. 3 weeks ago, that text would have made me cry. Would have made me want to call her, to try one more time to bridge the gap between us. Now I just felt tired tired of the emotional manipulation, the half gestures that were supposed to make her feel better without actually changing anything. I texted back, "Merry Christmas Eve to you too. Hope it's wonderful." Then I put my phone face down and didn't look at it again. Lucas wandered out around 7:30, hair sticking up, wearing the ridiculous Christmas sweater his sister had sent him, complete with a 3D Santa face on the front. "Is it too early for Christmas music?" he asked. "It's never too early for Christmas music." He queued up our playlist, and soon the apartment was filled with the sound of Nat King Cole's and Ella Fitzgerald. We made pancakes together, working in comfortable synchronization in our tiny kitchen. Lucas flipped while I mixed the batter. "We'd done this dance 100 times. You know what?" I said, watching him. "I'm happy." He looked up, spatula in hand. Yeah, like genuinely happy. Not trying to convince myself happy, not making the best of it happy. Just happy." He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "Good. That's all I've ever wanted for you." We spent the morning wrapping last-minute gifts and preparing for the afternoon. We'd signed up to volunteer from 2 to 6 at the Rosewood Community Center, serving Christmas Eve dinner to families who needed it. At 1:30, we bundled up and headed out. The drive to Rosewood took 20 minutes. It was in a part of Cincinnati I didn't usually visit, a neighborhood where the houses needed paint and the yards had more weeds than grass. The community center itself was a low brick building that had probably been there since the 70s. Inside, it was chaos. The good kind of chaos. Volunteers were everywhere, setting up tables, arranging food, decorating. The organizer, a woman named Cheryl with a Santa hat and an iPad, grabbed us as soon as we walked in. "You must be Jennifer and Lucas." "Thank goodness. We need all the help we can get. Can you two handle the kids' craft station? We got supplies for making ornaments, and we need someone to supervise and help the little ones." We spent the next 4 hours surrounded by children. Kids from 5 to 12, all excited about Christmas, all eager to make ornaments for their families. We cut felt shapes and glued on glitter and tied ribbon loops. We complimented every creation enthusiastically. We cleaned up approximately 7,000 pieces of glitter from the floor. A little girl named Maya, maybe 7 years old, showed me her ornament with pride. "It's for my mom. She works really hard." "It's beautiful," I told her honestly. "She's going to love it." "What does your mom do?" Maya asked, with that direct curiosity kids have. She's a homemaker," I said, the automatic answer I'd given 1,000 times before adding. "But we're not very close right now." "That's sad." Maya considered this seriously. "My abuela says families are hard sometimes, but she says you gotta keep trying." "Your abuela sounds wise." "She is. She's here somewhere." Maya peered around the crowded room. "She's the one giving out the toys." I looked and saw an older woman with gray hair and a warm smile, handing wrapped presents to excited children. "She looks nice," I said. "She's the best." Maya returned her attention to her ornament, adding more glitter. "I'm going to live with her now because my mom has to work a lot and we don't got enough money for after-school care. Abuela says it's good because we can have adventures together." I felt something twist in my chest. Here was this child, dealing with family separation out of necessity, making the best of it with the help of a grandmother who stepped up. And here I was, separated from my family by choice, or rather, by their choice not to accept my choices. The situations weren't comparable, not really. But it made me think about family, about what it meant, about obligation versus love. By 6 o'clock, every child had an ornament, every family had been served dinner, and the community center was filled with the sound of laughter and conversation. Lucas and I were exhausted, covered in glitter, smelling like a combination of hot glue and roasted turkey. "That was amazing," Lucas said as we walked to the car. "It really was." "Your family has no idea what they're missing," he added quietly. "Not just with you, but with this. With the chance to do something meaningful instead of just performing success." "You think that's what they're doing tonight? Performing? Don't you?" I thought about Christmases at my parents' house. The formal dining room with my mother's china and crystal. The catered food arranged on silver platters. My father at the head of the table, talking about his latest surgery or research project. Gregory discussing his latest sales numbers. Amanda showing off photos of the kids' latest accomplishments. Everyone dressed perfectly, saying the right things, posting the right photos to social media to prove how successful and happy the Hartwell family was. Yeah, I admitted. I guess I do. That evening, back at our apartment, we ordered Chinese food, our new tradition, we decided, and watched It's a Wonderful Life. Halfway through, my phone rang. Gregory's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hey, Jen. Merry Christmas Eve. He sounded slightly drunk. The Hartwells always had champagne with dinner. Listen, I just wanted to call and say, I wish you were here. Do you? Yeah, I do. The kids keep asking about you. Olivia made you a card. Something warm bloomed in my chest. She did? Yeah. She drew you and Lucas and put glitter all over it. It's actually pretty cute. He paused. Mom's being difficult about you not being here. She keeps saying it's your choice, that you're choosing Lucas over family, but I don't know. Is it wrong that I think she's being unreasonable? I sat up straighter. You think Mom's being unreasonable? Don't sound so shocked. He laughed, a little bitter. I'm capable of independent thought, you know. I usually find it easier to go along with what they want. But tonight, watching Mom delete you from the family photos she's posting, watching Dad pretend you don't exist, it's messed up, Jen. Why are you telling me this now? Because Amanda pointed something out to me earlier. She said you've been posting all these photos of you and Lucas, and you guys look genuinely happy. Like really happy. And then she asked me when was the last time I looked that happy in a photo. And I couldn't remember. He was definitely drunk. Sober Gregory would never admit this. I have everything I'm supposed to want, right? The career, the house, the family. But most days I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Performing my life instead of living it. Those were almost exactly the words Lucas had used earlier. Gregory, I'm not saying I'm going to quit my job and become a teacher or whatever. He laughed again. I'm just saying, maybe you made the right choice. Maybe being happy is more important than being successful. You can be both, I said quietly. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Maybe. But in our family they are. You know that. He sighed. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that somebody here misses you. And that your life looks pretty damn good from where I'm sitting. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a moment. Lucas paused the movie. Everything okay? Gregory called. He's drunk and having an existential crisis. Did he apologize for being a jerk? Not exactly. But he admitted that maybe I'm not the one making the wrong choices. I looked at Lucas. He said we look happy. We are happy. I know. It's just, I think this is the first time anyone in my family has acknowledged that. Lucas pulled me close, and we finished the movie like that, curled up together on our couch in our small apartment with our Chinese food containers on the coffee table and our little tree glowing in the corner. At midnight, technically Christmas Day, Lucas pulled out a small wrapped box. I know we said we'd do presents in the morning, but I can't wait. Inside was a necklace, a simple silver pendant in the shape of a house. It's our apartment, he explained, pointing to the tiny details. See, that's our window, and that's the door, and... I kissed him before he could finish explaining. When I pulled back, I was crying. I love it. I love you. I love our life. Even though we're not spending Christmas in a mansion in Newton. Especially because we're not spending Christmas in a mansion in Newton. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow. I woke to Lucas already up, making coffee, Christmas music playing softly in the kitchen. Merry Christmas, he said when I shuffled out, wrapped in my bathrobe. Merry Christmas. We'd agreed. Today was just for us. No checking social media. No worrying about what my family was doing. No comparing our modest celebration to their elaborate one. Just us, our apartment, and a day to do whatever we wanted. We opened presents slowly, taking time with each one. I'd gotten Lucas a first edition of his favorite history book. I'd been searching for it for 6 months. He'd gotten me a set of professional-grade drafting pencils I'd been coveting. We'd both gotten each other books, warm socks, silly gifts that made us laugh. Around 10, we started cooking. We planned an ambitious menu. Roasted duck, neither of us had ever cooked duck before. Scalloped potatoes, green beans almondine, homemade rolls. We put on aprons and turned the kitchen into a war zone of flour and butter and spices. I think the duck is supposed to be more golden, Lucas said, peering into the oven. It's fine. It's our duck. It's perfect. The skin looks like leather. Rustic leather. Very trendy. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. The thing about cooking together is that it's never really about the food. It's about the process, the collaboration, the shared creation of something. We worked side by side, handing each other ingredients, taste testing, making adjustments. When something went wrong, the first batch of rolls burned, the green beans got overcooked. We just laughed and tried again. By 2 o'clock, we had a feast laid out on our tiny dining table. The duck turned out surprisingly good despite its leather skin. The potatoes were creamy perfection. The rolls on the second attempt were golden and fluffy. We lit candles. We poured wine. We took a moment to just look at what we'd created. This is better than any Christmas I've ever had, I said. Better than the Hartwells' catered affairs. So much better. Because we made this. Just us. Before we ate, Lucas said, "Wait, we should document this." Really? Really? Not for your family, not for anyone else. Just for us. So 10 years from now we can look back and remember our first real Christmas together. He set up his phone on a stack of books across the room, set the timer, and rushed back to the table. We took a dozen photos. Us smiling at each other, us holding up our wine glasses, us laughing at something he said, us just being genuinely, completely happy. In the photos, our apartment looked cozy and warm. The Christmas tree glowed in the background. The table was set with mismatched plates we'd collected from thrift stores, but the food looked restaurant quality. And we looked like people who'd found exactly where they belonged. After dinner, we did something we'd never done before. We went for a walk in the snow. Our neighborhood was quiet, most people inside with their families. We walked hand in hand down streets lined with houses decorated with lights, making up stories about the people inside. That one, Lucas said, pointing to a huge Victorian with elaborate decorations. They definitely have 7 kids, and a dog named Biscuit. And a grandmother who knits sweaters for everyone, even the dog. Especially the dog. We walked for an hour, until our faces were numb from cold and our feet were soaked from the snow. Back at the apartment, we changed into dry clothes and curled up on the couch with hot chocolate. Best Christmas ever, Lucas asked. Best Christmas ever, I confirmed. It was 7 o'clock when I finally checked my phone. I had messages from friends, from Lucas's family, from colleagues, and 3 messages from my own family. From my mother, "Merry Christmas, Jennifer. I hope you're well." From Gregory, "Merry Christmas, sis. Call me when you get a chance." From Amanda, "Merry Christmas. The kids love their presents from you. Olivia wanted me to send you this." There was a photo attached. Olivia holding up the card she'd made for me, glitter everywhere, a huge smile on her face. I showed Lucas the photo of Olivia. She's so big. When did she get so big? Kids grow up fast. I'm missing it. I'm missing everything. I know. He squeezed my hand. But that's their choice, not yours. You're not the one keeping you away. He was right. But it still hurt. On impulse, I pulled up the photos we'd taken earlier. The one of us at the table, laughing, truly happy, our modest feast spread before us. "Can I post this?" I asked Lucas. "To make your family jealous." "Maybe a little," I admitted. "But also because I'm proud of it. Proud of us. Proud of what we've built. Is that okay?" "Post away." I uploaded the photo to Instagram and Facebook. I kept the caption simple, "Our first Christmas in our own place." Made every bit of it ourselves. The decorations, the food, the traditions. Grateful beyond words for a life built on love instead of expectations. Merry Christmas from our home to yours. I posted it and put my phone away. We spent the rest of the evening watching movies and eating leftover duck and playing board games. It was simple and perfect and exactly what I needed. I didn't check my phone again until we were getting ready for bed at 11. The photo had over 200 likes and dozens of comments. Friends congratulating us, saying the food looked amazing, saying we looked happy. And then I saw it. My mother had commented, "This looks lovely, Jennifer. I'm glad you're having a nice holiday." 7 words. That was it. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. No apology, no expression of regret that we weren't together. Just a polite comment like, she might leave on a stranger's photo. But Gregory had commented too, "This looks incredible. Way better than our catered dinner. Maybe next year you can teach me to actually cook something," faced with tears of joy. And then Amanda, "Everything looks beautiful. You too are glowing red heart." And then, surprisingly, comments from extended family members I barely knew. My Aunt Susan, my father's sister. "What a beautiful celebration. Family is about love, not location." My cousin Melissa, who I hadn't talked to in 5 years. "This is what Christmas should look like. Real, warm, full of love." One comment in particular made me catch my breath. It was from someone named Diana Hartwell Simmons, my father's cousin, who I'd met exactly twice in my life. "Jennifer, your grandmother would be so proud of you. She always said the measure of a person wasn't their bank account, but their capacity for love and joy." This photo shows both. "Merry Christmas, dear." I showed it to Lucas. I didn't even know my grandmother's cousin followed me on social media. "What was your grandmother like?" "She died when I was 12, but I remember her being warm. She used to drive my dad crazy because she'd give money to homeless people and take in stray cats and host neighborhood kids in her kitchen. My dad used to say she had no sense of propriety." I smiled, remembering. "I loved her. She sounds like she would have liked our Christmas." "Yeah, she would have." I fell asleep that night with my phone on the nightstand, the screen dark but the comments still glowing in my mind. Not my mother's perfunctory pleasantry, but all the others. The people who saw what Lucas and I had built and recognized it for what it was: real, authentic, valuable. The week between Christmas and New Year's was always strange, that liminal space where time felt suspended and nobody knew what day it was. Lucas was off work, and I'd taken vacation days, so we spent most of it in our pajamas, watching movies and eating leftovers and enjoying the fact that we had nowhere to be. But the comments on my Christmas photo kept coming. The post had somehow gotten traction, shared by a few of my friends to their own feeds, commented on by people I'd gone to college with, liked by former colleagues. Each notification was a small validation. "See," it seemed to say, "what you have is valuable. What you've chosen is worth something." On December 28th, I got a Facebook message from my Aunt Susan. "Jennifer, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I saw your Christmas photo and it made me smile. Your father has always been so focused on achievement and advancement that I think he's forgotten what actually matters. Your grandmother, his mother, would have loved what you've created with Lucas. I know I'm just your aunt and we don't know each other well, but I wanted you to know you're doing great. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I read it 3 times, feeling something loosen in my chest. "Lucas, look at this." He read it over my shoulder. "That's nice. It's more than nice. It's someone from my family saying I'm not crazy. That choosing happiness over status isn't failure. You needed someone to tell you that." I guess I did. I looked up at him. "I know you've been saying it all along. I know I should believe it. But hearing it from someone who actually knows my family, who understands where I came from, it helps." Later that day, Gregory called. "Hey, Jen. You busy?" "Not really. What's up?" "I wanted to talk to you about something. Away from Mom and Dad." He paused. "Can I be honest with you?" "Of course." "I'm jealous." "Of what?" "Of your Christmas. Of that photo you posted. Of how happy you and Lucas look." He exhaled slowly. "Amanda and I got into a huge fight on Christmas night. She said I spend more time thinking about work than about her and the kids. She said I'm turning into dad, obsessed with achievement, with looking successful, with keeping up appearances. Greg. She's right. I know she's right. But I don't know how to be any different." His voice cracked slightly. "How did you do it, Jen? How did you just walk away from all the expectations and build something real?" I was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer honestly. It wasn't easy. And I didn't just walk away. I was pushed in a lot of ways. But I think the key was deciding what I actually valued. Not what I was supposed to value, but what mattered to me. And then having the courage to choose that, even when it meant disappointing people. And you don't regret it? Not even when Mom and Dad act like you don't exist. I regret that they can't accept my choices. But I don't regret the choices themselves. I looked around our apartment. Small, imperfect, full of love. I'm happy, Gregory. Actually, genuinely happy. Are you? The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. No, he said finally. I don't think I am. But I don't know how to change that without losing everything. You wouldn't lose everything. You might lose some things. Status, maybe, or certain people's approval. But you'd gain something more valuable. Easy for you to say. You already made your choice. And it's not too late for you to make yours. I hesitated, then added, but Gregory, you have to actually want to change. You can't just be jealous of what I have. You have to be willing to do the work, to build something real for yourself. After we hung up, I felt strange. For 3 years, I'd been the family disappointment, the cautionary tale, the one who'd made the wrong choices. And now, suddenly, Gregory was looking at my life with envy. It was validating, but it was also sad. Sad that it had taken him this long to realize that success without happiness was hollow. Sad that he might never find the courage to make changes. Sad that our family was so broken that we couldn't be honest with each other without requiring literal distance and a major holiday as a buffer. New Year's Eve, Lucas and I stayed home. We talked about going to a party that some friends were hosting, but neither of us felt like being social. Instead, we cooked another elaborate meal, this time Thai food, which went slightly better than our duck adventure, and we sat on our couch, reviewing the year that was ending. This time last year, you were crying because your family had just ruined Christmas, Lucas said. I remember. I spent the entire drive back to Cincinnati composing angry texts I never sent. And this year, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. Done trying to change them. Done hoping they'll change themselves. Done measuring my life against their expectations. That's growth. Or giving up. There's a difference between giving up and letting go. He pulled me closer. You're letting go. That's healthy. At midnight, we kissed as fireworks exploded somewhere in the distance. When we pulled apart, Lucas was grinning. What? I'm just thinking about next year. All the things we're going to do. All the traditions we're going to build. He gestured around our apartment. Maybe we'll get a bigger place. Maybe we'll adopt a cat. Maybe we'll host our own Christmas dinner for people who don't have anywhere else to go. You're really committing to this whole building our own life thing, aren't you? Aren't you? I thought about it. Thought about what the next year could bring if we really committed to creating a life on our own terms without worrying about my family's approval or society's expectations. Thought about the freedom in that, the possibility. Yeah, I said. I am. January was brutal. Cold and gray, the kind of month that made you question why anyone lived in the Midwest. Lucas went back to teaching, and I went back to the office, and life returned to its normal rhythm. But something had shifted. I felt lighter, more grounded, like I'd finally stopped carrying the weight of my family's disappointment and learned to stand up straight without it. On January 15th, I got an email from Harrison and Lee's senior partner, Mitchell Harrison. He wanted to meet with me. I spent the entire morning convinced I was being fired. Had I made a mistake on a project? Had a client complained? Was the firm downsizing? At 2 o'clock, I knocked on Mitchell's office door. Jennifer, come in, sit down. Mitchell was in his late 60s, with white hair and kind eyes behind frameless glasses. I wanted to talk to you about something. Okay, I said cautiously. I've been reviewing your work over the past year, and I'm very impressed. Your sustainable housing project for the Riverside development was particularly innovative. He leaned back in his chair. I'm curious. Have you ever thought about taking on more responsibility here? Maybe heading up your own projects? I blinked. Yes, actually. I'd love that. Good. Because we've been approached by a developer who wants to build a series of affordable, sustainable homes throughout Cincinnati. It's a 5-year project, potentially worth $3 million in fees to the firm. And I'd like you to lead it. My heart was racing. Really? Really? You're talented, Jennifer. You care about the work, not just the paycheck. That's rare. He smiled. And frankly, we can't afford to lose you to a bigger firm. I'm not looking to leave. I know. But I also know you left Whitman and Associates, which means you know what the big firms offer. I can't match their salary, but I can offer you something they can't. Autonomy, creative control, and projects that actually matter to you. He slid a folder across his desk. Take a look at this. It's the proposal for the affordable housing project. If you're interested, we'll formalize your promotion to senior associate and assign you a team. I opened the folder with shaking hands. The project was exactly what I dreamed of working on. Sustainable design, community-focused, affordable housing for families who needed it. Real work that would make a real difference. I'm very interested, I managed to say. Good. We'll work out the details over the next few weeks. In the meantime, congratulations, Senior Associate Hartwell. I floated through the rest of the day. When I got home, Lucas was already there, grading papers at the kitchen table. Lucas! I got promoted. He looked up, pen frozen mid-mark. What? I got promoted to Senior Associate, and I'm going to lead a major project, affordable housing, sustainable design, everything I've wanted to work on. He was up and hugging me before I could say anything else. Jen, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. We celebrated with takeout and cheap champagne. I texted a few close friends. And then, without overthinking it, I posted on social media. Big news! I've been promoted to Senior Associate at Harrison and Lee and will be leading a 5-year affordable housing project. Proof that choosing passion over prestige can pay off in ways I never expected. Grateful for a firm that values creativity and purpose. Hashtag sustainable design, hashtag affordable housing, hashtag career growth. I included a photo, me standing in front of Harrison and Lee's modest office building, grinning like an idiot. The response was immediate. Friends congratulating me, former colleagues saying they weren't surprised, Lucas's family being adorably enthusiastic. And then an hour later, my mother commented, "Congratulations, Jennifer. We're very proud of you." I stared at those words for a long time. We're very proud of you. 3 years. 3 years of criticism, of disappointment, of being made to feel like I'd thrown away my potential. And now, with one promotion, suddenly they were proud? I showed Lucas. Look at this. He read it and his jaw tightened. That's something, I guess. Is it? Because it feels like they only care now that I've achieved something they can brag about. That's probably exactly what it is. I felt anger bubbling up. So when I was happy but not successful by their standards, I didn't matter. But now that I have a title they can mention at dinner parties, suddenly I'm worth being proud of. Jen! No, it's bullshit. I was pacing now. I'm the same person I was a month ago. The same person I was 3 years ago when I married you. The only thing that's changed is my job title. So don't let it change anything else. Don't let this one comment make you forget that they cut you out of Christmas. That they've spent 3 years making you feel not good enough. He was right. But God, it was tempting. Tempting to take this olive branch. To let this promotion be the thing that brought my family back into my life. To pretend the past 3 years hadn't happened. I didn't respond to my mother's comment. I just let it sit there. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Formalizing my promotion, meeting with the development team, starting preliminary designs for the housing project. I worked longer hours than I had in years, but they were energizing hours. Every day, I was creating something I believed in. In early February, Mitchell called me into his office again. "Jennifer, I wanted to let you know, the developer was so impressed with your initial concepts that they're considering expanding the project. Instead of 3 neighborhoods, they're looking at 5, possibly 6. That's incredible." It is. And it means more visibility for the firm. We're going to be featured in Architecture Digest for the project. They want to interview you specifically, talk about your design philosophy, your approach to sustainable affordable housing. I must have looked stunned because Mitchell laughed. "You deserve this, Jennifer. You've been doing excellent work, and now people are noticing." The Architecture Digest interview happened in March. The journalist, a woman named Rebecca Chun, met me at one of the project sites, an empty lot that would soon hold 20 sustainable homes for low-income families. "So, Jennifer, I've been looking at your background. You left Whitman and Associates 3 years ago, one of the most prestigious firms in Boston. That's an unusual move. What prompted it?" I'd known this question was coming. I'd prepared an answer about following my husband's career opportunity, about wanting to focus on more meaningful work. But standing there on that empty lot, imagining the families who would live there, the children who would grow up in homes I designed, I decided to tell the truth. I left because I realized I was building a career that looked impressive but felt hollow. I was working 80-hour weeks on projects I barely cared about for clients who saw buildings as investments rather than homes. My husband got an opportunity to teach at an incredible school here in Cincinnati, and I had a choice: stay in Boston and maintain my prestigious position, or come here with him and find work that actually mattered to me. That must have been a difficult decision. It was. My family didn't understand it. They saw it as throwing away my potential. And for a while, I wondered if they were right. I looked at the empty lot, at the blueprints in my hands. But now I'm leading a project that will house hundreds of families in sustainable, beautiful homes they can actually afford. I'm making a real difference. That's worth more to me than any corner office in Boston. Rebecca smiled. That's a great quote. Can I use it? Absolutely. The article came out in May. It was a 4-page spread with photos of the project site, my designs, and a portrait of me standing in front of the Harrison and Lee office. The headline read, "Building with Purpose: How One Architect Found Success by Redefining It." The article quoted me extensively. It talked about sustainable design, affordable housing, the importance of community-focused architecture. And it included that quote about leaving Boston, about choosing meaningful work over prestige. I bought 3 copies of the magazine. Lucas framed the article and hung it in our living room. And my mother called. "Jennifer, I saw the article." "Oh, thanks. It's very impressive. Your father and we're very proud of you." There was that phrase again. Very proud. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." 3 years ago, when Lucas and I moved here, you told me I was throwing away my career. You said I'd regret marrying him, regret leaving Boston, regret choosing this life. Do you remember that? "Jennifer, I don't think." "Do you remember?" I pressed. "I was concerned for you," she said carefully. "I wanted what was best for you. What you wanted was for me to live the life you'd planned for me. The prestigious job, the right kind of husband, the house in the right neighborhood. You didn't care if I was happy. You cared if I was successful by your definition. That's not fair, isn't it? You uninvited me from Christmas, Mom. You cut me out of family events. You made it clear that I wasn't welcome unless I changed my entire life. And now, because I got a promotion and an article in a magazine, suddenly you're proud of me?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to say you're sorry. I want you to acknowledge that you were wrong. I want you to say that you should have supported me even when my choices didn't match your expectations." "Jennifer." "But you won't, because that would mean admitting that your love has conditions, that your approval depends on me achieving the right kind of success." I felt tears prickling my eyes but kept my voice steady. "I'm happy, Mom. I have a husband who loves me, a career I'm passionate about, a life I built on my own terms. And I did it without your support, without your approval. So thank you for calling to say you're proud, but I don't need it anymore. You're being very hurtful." "I'm being honest. There's a difference." I hung up before she could respond. Lucas found me crying in our bedroom 20 minutes later. "I heard," he said quietly, sitting beside me. "You okay?" "I don't know. I finally stood up to her. Really stood up to her. And it felt good and terrible at the same time. That's normal. Is it? Because I feel like I just burned a bridge I can never rebuild. Maybe. Or maybe you're finally setting boundaries that should have existed all along." He pulled me close. "You don't owe anyone access to your life, Jen. Not even your parents. Especially not if they only want access when you're successful by their standards." Summer arrived, and with it, visible progress on the housing project. Foundations were poured, frames went up, and my designs started becoming real structures. I spent hours on site, talking to contractors, making adjustments, watching my vision materialize. In June, we got another piece of good news. Lucas was named Teacher of the Year for his school district. It came with a $5,000 award and a ceremony where he'd be recognized. "This is huge," I told him, reading the letter. "Lucas, this is incredible." "It's nice," he said, but he was grinning. "It feels good to be recognized. Are you going to tell your family?" "Already did." My mom cried. "She's going to make my dad drive 12 hours to come to the ceremony." "As she should." I paused. "Are you going to tell my family?" He looked at me carefully. "Do you want me to?" I want them to know that the man they thought wasn't good enough just won one of the highest honors a teacher can receive in Ohio. Is that petty? A little. But I like it. He kissed my forehead. Post it. Let them see. So I did. I posted a photo of Lucas holding the award letter, beaming with pride. Caption: Unbelievably proud of my husband, Lucas Bennett, who was just named Cincinnati Public Schools Teacher of the Year. He pours his heart into his students every single day, inspiring them to think critically and love learning. This recognition is so well-deserved. Hashtag proud wife, hashtag teacher of the year. The post exploded. Lucas's colleagues, his students' parents, his family, our friends. Everyone congratulated him. The post got shared dozens of times. And then I saw it. My father had commented, "Congratulations to Lucas. Teaching is important work." 6 words. From a man who'd spent 3 years dismissing my husband's career as unimpressive. I showed Lucas. "Look at this." He read it and snorted. "Teaching is important work." Wow. That's almost like actual respect. Should I be happy about this? Should I see it as progress? I think you should see it as your father realizing he was wrong but being too proud to admit it directly. Lucas set down his phone. But Jen, here's the thing. You don't need his validation. I don't need his validation. We know the value of what we do. We know we're building good lives. Whether or not your family acknowledges, that doesn't change the reality. He was right, of course. But some small, stubborn part of me still wanted their acknowledgement. Still wanted them to see what they'd missed, what they'd thrown away when they'd chosen status over substance. In July, Gregory called. We've been talking more regularly since Christmas. Careful conversations that skirted around the big issues but maintained some connection. "Hey, Jen. Got a minute?" "Sure. What's up?" "I wanted to tell you something before you hear it from someone else. Amanda and I are getting divorced." I sat down hard on the couch. "What?" "Greg, I'm so sorry." "What happened?" "A lot of things. Mostly me being a workaholic who prioritized career over family. She gave me an ultimatum: therapy and real change or divorce. I chose wrong, I guess. Or maybe I chose honestly." He sighed. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I am. I don't know how to turn off the drive for more, better, next level. And she deserves someone who can actually be present." "Greg, you could change. People can change." "Maybe. But I don't want to. That's the truth. I like my job. I like the money, the status, the success. I like being good at something even if it means sacrificing everything else." His voice cracked. "Does that make me a terrible person?" "It makes you honest. But it also means you're going to end up alone. Like you were willing to be alone rather than leave Lucas." The comparison stung because it was apartment. I'd been willing to be cut off from my family rather than leave my husband. Gregory was willing to lose his marriage rather than change his priorities. "The difference is I chose love over approval," I said quietly. "You're choosing achievement over love. Maybe there's not as much difference as you think." After we hung up, I felt profoundly sad. Not just for Gregory and Amanda, not just for Olivia and Ryan who'd have to navigate their parents' divorce, but for my whole family. For the way we've been raised to value accomplishment over connection, success over happiness. I told Lucas about the call that evening. "He's not wrong, you know," Lucas said. "You did choose something you valued over something else you valued. You chose us over them. He's choosing his career over his marriage. The mechanics are similar, but the outcome is completely different. I'm happy. He's miserable. Is he, though? Or is he happy in his career and just sad about the cost?" Lucas shrugged. "Some people genuinely value achievement more than relationships. It's not wrong, exactly. It's just lonely. I don't want to end up like that." "You won't. Because you already made your choice, and you chose differently." In August, the housing project reached a milestone, the first completed model home. It was beautiful, 2,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, sustainable materials throughout, solar panels on the roof, energy-efficient everything. And the price point was $180,000, affordable for families making median income in Cincinnati. The developer hosted an open house for press and potential buyers. I gave tours, explained the design features, talked about the vision for the community. At one point, I looked around the living room I designed and saw families, real families with kids and dogs and dreams, imagining themselves living there. This was why I'd left Boston. This was what meaningful work looked like. A photographer from the local newspaper took photos. They ran a story the next week. Local architect brings sustainable, affordable housing to Cincinnati. I posted the article with a photo of me standing in the model home. Caption: sometimes the best career moves are the ones that don't make sense on paper. 3 years ago, I left a prestigious firm to move to Cincinnati with my husband. Today, I'm watching families tour homes I designed, beautiful, sustainable, affordable homes that will make a real difference in people's lives. This is what success looks like to me. My phone buzzed with notifications for hours. And then that evening, my mother called. "Jennifer, it's Mom." "Hi. I saw the article about your housing project. It's very impressive. Thank you. Your father and I have been talking, and we'd like to invite you and Lucas to Thanksgiving this year." I was so shocked I couldn't speak for a moment. "Jennifer? Are you there?" "I'm here. I'm just surprised. We've been thinking a lot about your conversation in May. About the things you said." She paused. "You were right about some of it. We've been inflexible. We had expectations for your life that weren't fair." "Mom! Please, let me finish. We're not saying we were wrong about everything. We still think you could have achieved more if you'd stayed in Boston. But we can see that you're happy and successful in your own way. And we miss you. The kids miss you. So we'd like to have you both for Thanksgiving. If you're willing to come." I looked at Lucas, who'd been listening to my end of the conversation. He raised his eyebrows in question. "Can I think about it and get back to you?" I asked. "Of course. Talk to Lucas. We'd really like to see you both." After I hung up, Lucas said, "What do you think?" "I think they only invited us because I'm successful enough now to not be an embarrassment." Probably true. But they did invite us. They did say I was right about some things. That's more than I expected to ever get from them. "So what do you want to do?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Did I want to go back to my family, accept this conditional reconciliation, pretend the past 3 years hadn't happened? Or did I want to maintain the boundaries I'd set, the independence I'd claimed, even if it meant continued estrangement? "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to go, wants to believe they've actually changed. But part of me knows that if my career hadn't taken off, we still wouldn't be invited. And I don't know if I can accept a relationship that's based on my achievements rather than on love." "You don't have to decide right now." "When do I have to decide?" "Whenever you're ready. Or never. You can just let it sit." September became October, and I still hadn't given my mother an answer about Thanksgiving. She called twice more, each time more insistent that we should come, that the family wanted to see us. Finally, in mid-October, I made a decision. "I'm not going," I told Lucas. "To Thanksgiving, I mean. I'm not going." "Okay. Can I ask why?" "Because nothing's actually changed. They're proud of me now because I have the right kind of success. But if the housing project had failed, if the magazine article hadn't happened, if I was still just working at a small firm making $68,000 a year, we still wouldn't be invited. And I'm not interested in a relationship that's conditional on my professional achievements." "Fair enough. What are you going to tell your mom?" I called her that evening. "Mom, I've thought about your invitation, and Lucas and I have decided not to come to Thanksgiving." "Jennifer, please don't be like this. We're trying to make amends." "Are you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're trying to bring me back into the fold now that I'm successful enough to not be embarrassing. But nothing about your actual behavior has changed. You haven't apologized for cutting me out of Christmas last year. You haven't acknowledged how much it hurt to be told I wasn't welcome in my own family. You just want to pretend the past 3 years didn't happen because now I have a title you can mention at parties. That's not fair." "It's completely fair, Mom. You only value me when I achieve things you approve of. That's not love. That's not family. That's conditional acceptance, and I'm not interested in it anymore. So that's it? You're just going to cut us out of your life." "I'm not cutting you out. I'm setting a boundary. If you want a relationship with me, it needs to be based on genuine acceptance of me, of Lucas, of the life we've built. Not conditional approval that disappears the moment we stop meeting your expectations." She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to do that." Then I guess we don't have a relationship right now. Jennifer, I love you, Mom. I really do. But I love myself more. And I'm not going to keep accepting crumbs of affection when I deserve the whole meal. I hung up feeling shaky but certain. That night, Lucas held me while I cried. Not because I regretted my decision, but because it hurt. Because setting boundaries with people you love is painful even when it's necessary. You did the right thing, he murmured into my hair. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you're grieving. You're grieving the family you wish you had, the relationship you deserve but never got. That's worth crying over. October became November, and once again, we started planning our own Thanksgiving. This time, we invited people, Lucas's family, who drove up from Vermont, some friends from work, a few of Lucas's colleagues who didn't have family nearby. We hosted 15 people in our small apartment. We cooked for 3 days straight. Lucas's mother brought pies. His sister brought wine. Our friends brought side dishes. We crammed people around our tiny dining table and had to set up a card table in the living room for the overflow. It was chaotic and loud and perfect. During dinner, Lucas's father stood up to make a toast. I just want to say how grateful I am for Jennifer and Lucas. They opened their home to all of us. They cooked this incredible meal, and they've built a life based on kindness and generosity. That's what family should be, not blood, but choice. Not obligation, but love. He raised his glass. To Jennifer and Lucas, and to the family they're creating. Everyone raised their glasses. I felt tears prickling my eyes, but smiled through them. After dinner, I posted a photo. All 15 of us crammed into our small living room, smiling and laughing. Caption: Thanksgiving with our chosen family. Grateful for people who show up with love instead of expectations. Hashtag Thanksgiving, hashtag chosen family. The post got hundreds of likes. And this time, my family didn't comment at all. December arrived, and with it, the anniversary of being uninvited from Christmas. But this year, there was no debate about what we'd do. No phone call from my mother, no false hope that things would be different. We spent Christmas Eve at the completed housing project, now home to 30 families. We'd organized a community celebration. Hot chocolate, cookies, caroling. Kids ran around the common area we designed. Families smiled in their new homes, and I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. You did this, Lucas said, watching the scene. You created this community. We did this. Your support made it possible. Christmas morning, we slept in, made breakfast, opened presents. It was our second Christmas in our own place, and this year it felt less like rebellion and more like tradition. I posted a photo, us in front of our tree, which we'd upgraded to 4 feet this year. Caption: Year 2 of making our own traditions. Last year, we were proving we could be happy without my family's approval. This year, we're just happy. Growth looks like not needing to prove anything anymore. Merry Christmas from our home to yours. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. Friends, colleagues, Lucas's family, even some people I barely knew expressing admiration for the life we'd built. And then, on December 27th, I got an unexpected message on Facebook. From Amanda, my soon-to-be ex-sister-in-law. Jennifer, I know we haven't talked much since the separation, but I wanted to reach out. I've been following your posts over the past year, watching you build this beautiful life with Lucas. It made me realize what I want. Not the big house and the status and the picture-perfect family, but genuine happiness and partnership. That's what you and Lucas have. That's what I thought I had with Gregory, but never really did. Anyway, I wanted to say thank you. Watching you stand up for yourself gave me the courage to stand up for what I needed too. I hope you have a wonderful new year. I showed the message to Lucas. Wow, he said. That's really something. I inspired my sister-in-law to get divorced, I said, half laughing. Is that good or bad? It's neither. It's just honest. She saw what real partnership looks like and realized she didn't have it. Do you think we have it? Real partnership? Don't you? I looked around our apartment. Still small, still far from perfect, but undeniably ours. I looked at Lucas, grading papers on the couch in his ridiculous Christmas sweater. I thought about the housing project, my promotion, the life we'd built despite every obstacle my family had thrown in our path. Yeah, I said. I do. The new year brought unexpected developments. In January, Gregory called. Jen, can we talk? Like really talk? Okay. What's going on? The divorce is final. Amanda got the house. I have the kids every other weekend. And I'm living in a condo downtown that costs $3,200 a month. He laughed bitterly. I have everything I thought I wanted, the career, the independence, the freedom, and I've never been more miserable. Greg! No, let me finish. I've been thinking a lot about what you said last year. About choosing achievement over love. You were right. I did that. I chose my career over my marriage, over my kids, over everything. And now I see them 4 days a month and spend the rest of my time alone in a condo working 80-hour weeks for what? For money? For status? What are you going to do? I don't know. But I do know that I need to apologize to you. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Jen. I'm sorry for how I treated Lucas, for the comments I made, for siding with Mom and Dad when they cut you out. You were brave enough to choose love, and I mocked you for it. I was wrong. I sat down slowly on the couch. In 3 years, no one in my family had apologized. Not once. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. And I want you to know, I told Mom and Dad that what they did was wrong. I told them they need to actually make amends, not just invite you to holidays when you're successful enough. I don't know if it'll change anything, but I wanted them to hear it. After we hung up, I felt something shift. Not hope, exactly. I'd learned not to hope for my family to change, but something like closure. Gregory had acknowledged the truth. That was more than I'd expected. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. An actual letter, handwritten on my mother's cream-colored stationery. Dear Jennifer, I'm writing because I don't trust myself to say this correctly over the phone. Your father and I have spent a lot of time this past year thinking about our relationship with you, or lack thereof. Gregory helped us see some things we'd been unwilling to see. We were wrong. Not just about uninviting you from Christmas, though that was certainly wrong. We were wrong about how we've treated you since you married Lucas. We were wrong to make our love conditional on your professional success. We were wrong to prioritize status over your happiness. Your father grew up poor, and he spent his entire life climbing out of that poverty. He built success through sheer determination, and he wanted that same drive for his children. He saw your choice to leave Boston as giving up, as settling. He couldn't understand why you'd voluntarily choose less money, less prestige, less advancement. But watching your career this past year, seeing the housing project and the article and the genuine happiness in your photos, we finally understood. You didn't choose less. You chose different. You chose work that matters to you over work that impresses others. You chose a partner who values you over a partner who fits our expectations. You chose happiness over performance. We should have supported those choices from the beginning. We should have celebrated your marriage, welcomed Lucas into the family, and trusted that you knew what was best for your own life. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. I know we've caused a lot of hurt, and a letter can't undo 3 years of rejection. But I am asking for a chance to rebuild our relationship on better terms, terms where our love isn't conditional on your achievements. If you're willing, we'd like to come to Cincinnati to see you. To see your home, meet your friends, tour your housing project, and get to know the life you've built. We'd like to get to know Lucas as the man our daughter loves, not just as someone who doesn't meet our arbitrary standards. No pressure, no expectations, just an invitation to start over if you're willing. With love, Mom. I read the letter 3 times. Then I showed it to Lucas. What do you think? I asked. I think it's a start. I think it's more than you've gotten from them before. He looked at me carefully. But the question is, what do you want? I want them to mean it. I want this to be real change, not just words on paper. There's only one way to find out. I called my mother that evening. Mom, I got your letter. Oh, Jennifer. I wasn't sure if you'd call. She sounded nervous, which was unusual for her. It was a good letter. Honest. I meant every word. I want to believe that. But I need you to understand, if I let you back into my life, there can't be any more conditions. You have to accept that my life looks different from what you planned. That Lucas is my partner, and you need to respect him. That I'm not going to sacrifice my happiness to meet your expectations ever again. I understand. We both do. Okay. Then you can come visit. But Mom, if you come here and make judgments about our apartment or our life, or Lucas's job, I will ask you to leave. I'm serious. I wouldn't do that. You have before. She was quiet. You're right. I have. But I'm trying to be different. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that. Okay. Come in February. We can show you the housing project. You can meet our friends. You can see our life. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for giving us another chance. My parents came to Cincinnati on February 14th, Valentine's Day, which felt either ironic or auspicious depending on how you looked at it. Lucas and I picked them up from the airport. I'd been anxious all morning, cleaning our apartment obsessively, even though I'd promised myself I wouldn't try to impress them. Relax, Lucas said, catching me straightening the throw pillows for the third time. Either they're going to accept us as we are, or they're not. But we're not performing for them. I know. I want this to go well. It will. Or it won't. But either way, we'll be okay. My parents emerged from the terminal looking somehow smaller than I remembered. My father's hair was grayer, my mother's face more lined. They were aging, I realized with a start. They wouldn't be around forever. Jennifer! My mother hugged me tightly, longer than she usually did. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. It's so good to see you. You too, Mom. My father shook Lucas's hand. Lucas! Thank you for having us. Of course, Dr. Hartwell. Please, call me Richard. That was new. The drive to our apartment was filled with small talk. Their flight, the weather, my father's retirement plans. He was finally cutting back his hours at the hospital. When we pulled up to our building, I watched my mother's face carefully. Our apartment complex wasn't much. Standard exterior, small parking lot, nothing like the neighborhoods I'd grown up in. But she just smiled. It looks nice. Inside, I watched them take in our space with fresh eyes. The small living room, the tiny kitchen, the secondhand furniture we'd refinished ourselves. The framed Architecture Digest article on the wall, Lucas's Teacher of the Year certificate, our collection of thrift store art. This is lovely, my mother said. You've made it so warm. Thank you. Can I see the rest? I showed them around, the bedroom barely big enough for our queen bed, the bathroom with its outdated fixtures, the second bedroom we used as a home office. It took 5 minutes to see the whole place. It's perfect for you too, my father said, and he sounded like he meant it. That afternoon, we took them to the housing project. We drove through the completed first phase, 30 homes, all occupied now, kids playing in the common areas, families visible through windows. These are the homes you designed, my father asked. Yes. We're working on phase 2 now, another 40 homes in a different neighborhood. We toured the model home. I explained the sustainable features, the energy efficiency, the affordable price point. My parents listened, asked questions, seemed genuinely interested. This is remarkable, Jennifer, my father said finally. You've created something that will improve people's lives for generations. That was always the goal. I owe you an apology. Multiple apologies, actually. He looked at me directly. I thought you were limiting yourself by leaving Whitman and Associates. I thought you were settling. I was wrong. This work is more valuable than anything you could have done in Boston. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. Thank you for saying that. That evening, we had dinner at our apartment. Lucas cooked, his specialty, homemade pasta with sauce from scratch. We sat around our small table, the 4 of us, and for the first time in years, it felt almost comfortable. Lucas, I need to apologize to you as well, my father said over dinner. I was dismissive of your career, your choices, your value. That was arrogant and wrong. Teaching is essential work, and the fact that you're recognized as excellent at it says more about your character than any salary number could. Lucas looked stunned. Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Please, call me Richard. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry, too. To both of you. We let our own narrow definition of success blind us to what actually matters. You've built something beautiful here. A partnership, a home, a life. We should have supported that from the beginning. I squeezed her hand. Thank you, Mom. So, my father said, tell us about your lives. Really tell us. What do you do for fun? What are your dreams? What makes you happy? We talked for hours. About Lucas's students, the ones who struggled and the ones who thrived. About my housing project and the families I'd met. About our friends, our community, our plans for the future. About maybe buying a small house in a year or two, about maybe getting a dog, about possibly starting a family someday. My parents listened, really listened. They asked questions without judgment, showed interest without criticism, accepted our answers without trying to redirect them toward their preferred outcomes. It felt like meeting them for the first time. That night, after my parents had gone to their hotel, Lucas and I collapsed on the couch. "That went better than expected," he said. "It was almost nice. Your dad called me Lucas. My dad told you teaching was essential work. Your mom complimented our apartment. My mom held my hand and apologized." We looked at each other and laughed, the slightly hysterical laughter of people who'd been braced for disaster and gotten something close to a miracle instead. The next morning, we took my parents to Lucas's school. He'd arranged for them to sit in on one of his classes, American History, 11th grade, discussing the Civil Rights Movement. I watched my parents watch Lucas teach. He was in his element, engaging students in discussion, challenging them to think critically, making history feel relevant and immediate. The kids clearly loved him. They participated eagerly, asked thoughtful questions, debated respectfully. After class, a girl named Destiny approached us. "Are you Mr. Bennett's family?" "I'm his wife," I said. "These are my parents. Mr. Bennett is the best teacher I've ever had. He's the reason I'm applying to college. He helped me with my essays and everything." She smiled at Lucas. "You should be really proud of him." "We are," my mother said. And she meant it. That afternoon, I took a photo. All four of us at the housing project, standing in front of one of the completed homes. My mother's arm around my shoulders, my father shaking Lucas's hand, all of us smiling genuine smiles. I posted it that evening with a caption. "Sometimes people surprise you. Sometimes relationships can heal. Sometimes it takes 3 years and a lot of pain, but forgiveness and growth are possible. Grateful for second chances, and for parents brave enough to admit they were wrong. #FamilyHealing, #second chances. The response was overwhelming. Friends who'd watched me struggle with my family's rejection, celebrating this reconciliation. Colleagues congratulating me. Strangers saying the post gave them hope for their own broken family relationships. And then I saw a comment from Diana Hartwell Simmons, my grandmother's cousin who'd commented on my Christmas photo 2 years ago. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you, Jennifer. Not for your career achievements, though those are wonderful, but for your courage in setting boundaries and your grace in allowing reconciliation. That's true strength. And Richard, if you're reading this, you finally figured out what your mother tried to teach you all along. Better late than never." My father commented back, "You're absolutely right, Diana. I wish I'd listened to her while she was still here. But I'm listening to Jennifer now." My parents stayed for 4 days. We showed them our favorite restaurants, introduced them to our friends, took them to a performance at the local theater. They met Diane from my office, who immediately took to my mother and ended up in a long conversation about gardening. They met Lucas's department chair, who praised Lucas enthusiastically and mentioned they were hoping he'd eventually move into a leadership role at the school. On their last evening, we had dinner at a nice restaurant downtown, their treat, they insisted. "We want to talk to you about something," my mother said over dessert. I tensed. Here it came, the conditions, the criticism, the real reason they'd made this trip. "Relax," my father said, noticing my expression. "It's nothing bad. We want to make things right, and part of that involves acknowledging that we've been financially withholding." "What do you mean?" "Gregory has received help from us over the years," my mother explained. "Down payment on his house, money for the kids' education funds, investment in his career. We never offered you anything because we disapproved of your choices. That wasn't fair. I never expected." "Let me finish," my father said gently. "We'd like to establish a college fund for your future children. $50,000 to start, and we'll add to it annually. And we'd like to help with a down payment if and when you decide to buy a house. Not to control your choices, but to support them. We should have been doing this all along." I stared at them. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept it," my mother said. "Say you'll let us be part of your life going forward. Real parts, not just Christmas card relatives." "But what if I make choices you don't approve of again?" I asked. "What if Lucas and I decide to do something unconventional? What if?" "Then we'll support you anyway," my father said firmly. "That's what parents should do. Support their children's choices, even when they don't understand them. We're learning that. Slowly, perhaps, but we're learning. Lucas squeezed my hand under the table. Okay, I said. Yes. Thank you. The next morning, we took them to the airport. My mother hugged me for a long time at the departure gate. This isn't the end, she whispered. This is the beginning. We're going to do better. I promise. I believe you. After they left, Lucas and I sat in the airport parking lot for a while, processing. That really happened, right? I said. My parents actually apologized and meant it. It really happened. My dad called teaching essential work and offered to help with our future. He did. My mom said she'd support us even if she didn't understand our choices. She said that too. I leaned my head on his shoulder. I feel like I've been holding my breath for 3 years, and I can finally exhale. How does it feel? Good. Scary. Like maybe things can actually be okay. They can be more than okay, Jen. They can be great. That night, I posted one more photo. Just Lucas and me, taken in our apartment, smiling at each other rather than at the camera. The caption was simple. 3 years ago, my family uninvited me from Christmas because they didn't approve of my husband or my life choices. It hurt more than I can express. I spent 2 years building a life without their approval, learning that I didn't need their validation to be happy. But this week, something unexpected happened. They apologized. Really apologized. They admitted they were wrong, came to see our life, and asked for a second chance. Here's what I learned. Setting boundaries doesn't mean burning bridges forever. It means protecting yourself until people are ready to treat you with respect. Sometimes people do change. Sometimes families do heal. But it only happens when you love yourself enough to demand better treatment and when others love you enough to actually change their behavior. To anyone dealing with family rejection right now, your life has value even if they don't see it yet. Your choices are valid even if they don't approve. Build the life you want, not the life others expect. And maybe, just maybe, one day they'll come around. But even if they don't, you'll be okay. Because you'll have built something real. Hashtag family healing, hashtag setting boundaries, hashtag second chances, hashtag choosing yourself. The post went viral. By morning, it had been shared over 10,000 times. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories of family estrangement, of choosing themselves, of reconciliation, or the lack thereof. Messages from strangers saying the post gave them courage to set boundaries with their own families. Messages from others saying it gave them hope that reconciliation was possible. My story had struck a chord. A week later, I got an email from a literary agent. Jennifer, I came across your story on social media and was deeply moved. Have you ever considered writing a book? I think your journey, from family rejection to self-actualization to potential reconciliation, would resonate with many readers. If you're interested in discussing this further, I'd love to talk. I showed Lucas the email. A book, he said. About our life. About choosing yourself when family demands you be someone else. About building a life on your own terms. I looked at him. What do you think? I think you should do it. I think your story could help people. That spring, I started writing. Not a memoir exactly, but a blend of my story and practical advice for people navigating family conflict and self-determination. I wrote about setting boundaries, about choosing happiness over approval, about the difference between giving up and letting go. I wrote about what it felt like to be uninvited from Christmas and how that rejection, as painful as it was, ultimately freed me to build something authentic. I wrote about the housing project, about Lucas's teaching, about creating a life that mattered to us rather than impressing others. And I wrote about reconciliation, about the fact that sometimes, if you hold firm long enough, people do come around. But also about the fact that even if they don't, you'll be okay. The book took a year to write. During that time, my relationship with my parents continued to improve. They visited twice more. We visited them once, staying in their house, and it was awkward but warm. Gregory and I grew closer. He started seeing a therapist and working on himself, trying to figure out who he wanted to be apart from career achievement. Amanda started dating someone new, a teacher, ironically, who coached soccer and loved his work and made her laugh. She told me he reminded her of Lucas, and she meant it as the highest compliment. It's December again. 3 years since that phone call uninviting me from Christmas. 3 years since my mother's voice, tight and controlled, told me I wasn't welcome in my own family. So much has changed. Lucas and I bought a house, a small Cape Cod in a neighborhood near the housing project. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a yard with a maple tree. It needs work, but it's ours. My parents contributed to the down payment, as they'd promised. No strings attached. The housing project is in its 3rd phase now, with over 150 families living in homes I designed. I've been featured in Architectural Record, Dwell, and the New York Times. Harrison and Lee promoted me to partner. My salary is now $145,000, more than I was making in Boston, though that was never the point. Lucas was invited to speak at a national education conference about innovative teaching methods. The school district created a mentorship program based on his approach, and he now helps train new teachers. He's still in the classroom, still exactly where he wants to be, but he's also shaping the future of education in Cincinnati. My book, Building on Your Own Terms, Choosing Happiness When Family Demands Performance, was published in October. It made the New York Times bestseller list for 3 weeks. I've done podcast interviews, spoken at conferences, received letters from readers saying the book helped them navigate their own family conflicts. My family will be here for Christmas in 2 days. All of them, my parents, Gregory, Amanda and her new boyfriend, Olivia and Ryan. They're staying at a hotel nearby. Our house isn't big enough for everyone, but they'll be here for Christmas Eve dinner and Christmas morning. This morning, I posted a photo on social media. Lucas and me in front of our new house, Christmas lights twinkling, snow on the ground. The caption, 3 years ago, I wasn't invited to Christmas. Today I'm hosting it. In a home I own, in a career I love, with a partner who sees me for who I am. The moral isn't that my family eventually came around, though I'm grateful they did. The moral is that I built a life worth living whether they accepted it or not. That's the real victory. To everyone who's been following this journey, thank you. Thank you for the support, for sharing your own stories, for reminding me that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Wishing you all a holiday season filled with love, acceptance, and the courage to build the life you actually want. Hashtag 3 years later, hashtag Christmas redemption, hashtag choosing yourself. The post has already gotten thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, but I'm not checking it obsessively anymore. I don't need the validation like I used to. Lucas comes up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Ready for the chaos. Ready as I'll ever be. Think your parents will behave? I think they'll try. And if they slip up, I'll call them on it. But honestly, I think we're past the worst of it. You've come a long way, Jen. We've come a long way. He kisses my neck. Remember that first Christmas? When we cooked the duck with the leather skin and took all those photos just to show your family what they were missing. I remember. I was so angry, so hurt. And now I'm grateful. If they hadn't rejected me, I never would have learned to stand on my own. I never would have discovered that I don't need anyone's approval to be happy. I never would have built this. I gesture around our house, our life, our future. You think you would have been happy if they'd accepted us from the beginning? I consider this. Maybe. But I would have always been waiting for the other shoe to drop, always trying to prove I'd made the right choice. Now I know I made the right choice. I know it in my bones. That certainty came from having to defend it, from having to choose it every day even when it was hard. So getting uninvited from Christmas was actually a gift. In a twisted way. Yes. It forced me to figure out who I was apart from their expectations. It forced me to build something real. My phone buzzes. A text from my mother. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'm bringing my famous apple pie. And Richard says to tell you he's proud of you. Always. Not just when you achieve things. I show Lucas the text. That's growth, he says. That's 3 years of painful lessons finally taking root. Tomorrow, my family will arrive. We'll eat dinner around our table, exchange gifts, laugh and maybe argue a little, because that's what families do. Olivia and Ryan will run around our yard, and I'll get to be the aunt I've wanted to be. My parents will admire our house, and my father will probably comment on some repair that needs doing, and my mother will rearrange something in my kitchen without asking. And it will be okay. Not perfect, but okay. Because I learned something these past 3 years. You can love people and have boundaries. You can honor your family and honor yourself. You can choose happiness without burning every bridge. But you have to choose yourself first. That evening, Lucas and I put the final touches on our Christmas decorations. We hang lights, arrange presents under the tree, set the table for tomorrow's dinner. Everything is ready. I think about that phone call 3 years ago. The shock, the hurt, the feeling of being erased from my own family. I think about the 2 Christmases Lucas and I spent on our own, building traditions, proving we could be happy without them. I think about the photos we posted, the life we documented, the story we told. About how those photos eventually helped my family see what they were missing. But more importantly, about how creating that life, not just photographing it, but actually living it, helped me see my own worth. The photos weren't just for them. They were for me. Evidence that I was building something valuable, something real, something worth choosing even when it cost me my family's approval. And now here we are. 3 years later, on the other side of the pain, with a life that's undeniably ours and a family that's finally learning to accept it. Lucas raises a glass of wine. To 3 years of choosing ourselves. I clink my glass against his. To 3 years of building a life worth living. To many more years ahead. To family, both born and chosen. To Christmas, the ones we celebrate alone and the ones we celebrate together. To surviving rejection and coming out stronger. We drink, and through the window, I can see our neighbors' Christmas lights twinkling. Somewhere, other families are navigating their own complicated relationships, their own questions about belonging and approval and self-worth. I hope they find their way through like I did. I hope they learn to choose themselves without losing themselves. I hope they build lives so full and rich and real that eventually, everyone who doubted them will see what they've been missing. But even if they don't, even if the people they love never come around, I hope they know they'll be okay. Because the greatest gift isn't having your family's approval. It's knowing you don't need it to be happy.